Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to the start of a reading vlog. I am currently filming on my good camera, but I will be swapping out to my smaller vlogging camera a little bit later, so the quality will shift a little bit. I apologise about that, but this camera requires me to have very specific lighting for it to work properly, so I will not be having that out all day. But I wanted to film this vlog, which is more of a reaction, first thoughts kind of vlog, because I recently downloaded 12 novellas from a promo called the Fresh Start promo, which features a number of authors that I really love who were sharing brand new novellas from the 16th to the 30th of January, and I'm hoping that this vlog goes up before the 30th of January, so if you're interested in any of them, you can download them. They feature a variety of different genres, so there's contemporary, so there's some sports and hockey romances, there are some fantasy / paranormal kind of romances, and I'm just kind of keen to try all of them, give you my thoughts. And also it's a little bit of an accountability thing for me as well, because this is 12 new things that I have acquired. No, it didn't cost me anything, but it's 12 extra titles on my TBR, but if I read through them quickly, then I don't feel quite as bad about bringing them in. Yes, I still have a ginormous backlist of things to read, but I'm very excited about some of these because Jodi has a novella that starts off her brand new hockey series. Louisa has a novella that's also part of a contemporary world that she has been writing, and there's like Becca Seymour, and I think Becca Jackson might have a story in here. Lindsey has a story. I'll put a picture of all of the titles on the screen because I'm not going to read them all now. But essentially I'm just going to read through them. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and hopefully you find this interesting. So stay tuned. I will be back a little bit later once I've read the first story, which will probably be Jodi because it's the one I'm most excited about. Alrighty, so I finished Grumpy Player by Jodi, which is a prequel-ish novella to her Toronto Typhoon series, which is the new hockey romance series that she's starting. We are following Theo, who is an NHL defenseman who's been traded 3 times in the last 4 years, most recently to Toronto, and he is, you know, feeling some kind of way about being traded constantly. And at the very start of the book, he ends up having this one-night stand with a guy called Kyle, then finds out that Kyle literally lives next door to him, and he freaks out because he is a no attachments kind of person because he keeps getting traded. He's very, very uncomfortable getting attached to people. Meanwhile, Kyle has gotten out of a bad relationship. His ex-partner cheated on him. And so there's this awkward moment of, you know, they're constantly seeing one another, but Theo is being real grumpy. And most of the story is sort of Theo settling in to his new team, and we get to meet a lot of the players who obviously are going to be part of this series. Elliot gets a cameo. I love Elliot with my whole heart. He's from the Chicago Thunder. Oh my god, I love him to pieces. And the whole thing is just very sweet, and I'm very excited about this new series. I think it's going to be great. I think the next book that I'm going to read is going to be Rebrand by Louisa, which is part of her Style Me series, which is contemporary romance, I think. So Rebrand by Louisa is is connected to Batting Style, which was part of the Franklin Yu universe, and I've read that one. And the links in it is one of the characters in here introduces the other 2 characters. So this story is about Kane, who is an actor who has terrible style and is basically losing out on opportunities because his style is atrocious. He meets a guy called Charlie. Charlie is from Batting Style, who offers to put him in contact with a fashion stylist, a very well-known one, Damien, and that's how the story begins. Kane and Damien meet. Damien is willing to take him on as a client, and it's the sort of the process of finding his style and then falling for one another. I will say this one, the romance felt a little bit one-sided until the end, more like it was developed on Kane's side and not necessarily on Damien's side, but it's a short, so it's always going to be quick anyway. But it was fun. So next I'm going to read Becca Jackson's short, because let's just keep going with a hockey romance. I'll be back. Hello, hello. I just finished reading Mr. Shutout by Becca Jackson, which is part of her Playmakers series, which I believe the first book is coming out at the end of March, which is a hockey romance series. And this one is about Henry, who is a goalie. He's been called up from the AHL as a backup goalie, and it's his first NHL game, and he is beyond excited. He's also a goalie, so he's a little bit odd, and we love odd goalies, and for some reason they decided to mic him up. So as he says, he tries to make his commentary interesting for everyone. The very first scene that we get, he is in the lift in his building. He's on his way to his first game and he's excited. He's taking a photo of himself in the mirror, and a hot guy gets into the lift with him and jumps into the photo with him. They don't talk, they don't introduce each other, nothing. They have this photo. Anyway, turns out that this guy is AJ. He's a firefighter at the local precinct, and he's a firefighter at the local station, and he ends up rescuing Henry from his own apartment because Henry happens to be very, very tired, put something in the microwave and maybe overcooks it a little bit. It was fun, it was sweet. There's a couple of things in there around the hockey stuff that I have to double check, because I read it and then it kind of pulled me out because I'm like, I'm not quite sure that's been used in the correct way, but it's the right term, but not the right context. I don't know. This is what happens when you become ridiculously invested in an actual sport and you still like to read about that sport in your books. You pay ridiculous amounts of attention to that, so something I'll check out. But yes, the next thing I'm going to read is Just For Us by Becca Seymour. Alright, I'm back. I just read Just For Us by Becca Seymour, and this is a contemporary queer novella. It is a friends to lovers story between Cody, who works in investments, and he has a best friend called Denny who has a trans son, and Cody and Denny have been the best friends for years, and Cody has been a big part of Denny's son Jay's life for a long period of time, and he's currently helping Jay to start a trans youth support center in the small town where they live. And this book is Cody and Denny finally acknowledging and talking about the fact that they are both interested in one another and acting on it. And Jay is a delightful 15-year-old who is very driven and also very highly invested in his biological and chosen parent being together, which is wonderful. So that was a lot of fun. I think I'm going to read Jax Calder's short story novella next. Hold the Phone. Moderating Love is my favorite novella that I've read so far. It is so stinking cute. So we have two moderators of an online forum, and this online forum is about meet cutes and people falling in love. And one of them is a romantic optimist, I think is the word that's used to describe him, and the other is a love skeptic. And so they're constantly chatting to each other because they both moderate the same forum, and they have to verify whether or not the stories are true. We have Devon, who is the optimist. He just loves the stories, he loves the romance, and he's quite happy to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. Not always, but he more than likely is going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And then you have Travis, who is an engineer by trade, and he is deeply skeptical. He has spreadsheets for determining the likelihood of a story being true. He has so many spreadsheets. It is delightful. As a fellow spreadsheet nerd, even though I'm still scared of them, I still love them. It brought my heart joy, and these two are just so freaking adorable together. And what happens is they're talking online, and Devon keeps seeing this guy in the coffee shop, and he thinks he's cute. He contemplates asking him out, doesn't do it. But one day this guy comes and approaches him, and it's not Travis, it's Travis's brother. Travis's brother asks if he'd be willing to be set up on a date with his brother, and Devon agrees. And it's Devon who figures out the morning after their date has gone amazingly well, they've slept together, they're really compatible, they're having the best time. He figures out that Travis is the same person as this online persona because they don't know each other's first names or real names. I was smiling and giggling, and the whole thing, like, there's no miscommunication, there's no third act stuff. This is the longest of the novellas I've read, I'm pretty sure. But oh my god, It was so cute. I loved it. I think I'm going to read one more before I organize dinner. What am I going to read? Maybe X's and O's by May Archer. Alright, X's and O's by May Archer is a contemporary queer novel. It's about Eric, who comes from a wealthy family. He works for his father's company, but at the start of the book we find him in a small town drinking in a bar because he's confessed to his father that he did something and it got someone else fired. The basic premise behind what he did was basically his father's company were partnering with a company that promoted family values, and as a queer man, Eric really disagreed with that and didn't like that the company was aligning with them, and so he impulsively did something that basically tanked that partnership, and then confessed to his father and was told to resign his position and was told to apologize to Griffin, who is quite happy in the small town where he has moved and has found a partner and does not regret leaving his previous life but appreciates the apology. While he's in this town, Eric meets Carlos, who works for Griffin's partner and comes to check on Eric at the bar where he's drinking, and the two get into this competition about who is the most impulsive, and Carlos kind of wins that one because he's like, I've never been attracted to a guy, but seeing you stand up for what you believe in today and stand up to your dad, that was really attractive. And so the two have this moment, and then obviously Eric goes back to New York and Carlos stays in the small town and they're constantly texting one another. Eric becomes a preschool teacher. They're really trying to figure out if this relationship can work. Now there's another little side plot thingy that kind of happens in the middle towards the end of the book that really has no bearing on their story, so I'm choosing to ignore it. Their story is very sweet and really lovely, and I'm glad that I read it. I think I'm going to read A Gilded Blade by Hailey Turner. Alrighty, so I finished A Gilded Blade by Hailey Turner, which is a queer fantasy romance. I believe this novella takes place after a series, so a lot of the world setup and stuff must have happened in that series, although the novella does a good job of kind of setting the tone of where we are now, because one of our main characters, Rodian, lives on the outskirts of the city in this, you know, fantasy country, and is in charge of his small town, but he still looks after the reindeer herd and all of that sort of stuff. But he's approached by one of the star gods, the Midnight Star, and basically told he has a path that he's going to be walking. And then people from the city arrive to say, we know that you are the, you know, a descendant of the ruling class, the ruling leader, who, and the last descendant from that line aside from him has been killed or died or something like that. So he is essentially a long lost royal. So he is taken back off to the city and he is sworn in, and we meet Arcady, who is a member of the, oh god, what do we call it, the ruling class, aristocrat. I'm really not remembering the correct terms for all of this. Anyway, he is aristocracy. Aristocracy? I don't know. Anyway, his family has some sway. Unbeknownst to pretty much everyone else around him, he is also a assassin slash spy. They think he's just a gossip. He's a bit younger than Rodian, and they meet at the ball where Rodian is officially sworn in with an audience. And Arcady doesn't mince his words with the new ruler, and Rodian is quite a benevolent, am I using the right term, benevolent ruler. Is like, he is very much aware of the war that has happened previously, the implications that has on society, and he is very fair. He's very fair. He not only talks to the ruling class but also to the everyday workers and the everyday people, and that gets him into a bit of hot water because one of his policies involves children from across the country basically being tithed to a group as a result of what happened in the war, which Rodian was not involved in but has said, you know, we made this mess, we need to pay for it, essentially. And so some of the ruling class basically set out to try and assassinate Rodian. Arcady learns of this plot and defends him, and yeah, it's Arcady and Rodian's romance. It gets very, very steamy towards the end. It was interesting. I'm not sure if I'll go back and read the original series. I mean, I might, but I don't feel like I need to. This was good on its own as a standalone, so I suppose that's a good thing. Bold of me to assume that I could do this in a day. Clearly not. I need to edit my weekly wrap-up because that needs to go up tomorrow. So I need to stop reading and actually do that. Alright, so I'm back. I have read Honovi's Briefs by Lucy Lennox, which is a contemporary romance. It is the romance between Xavier, who is a surgeon, and Honovi, who is a lawyer or an attorney who is prepping Xavier for a case that he has been involved in. And this is a really interesting one because they're playing into stereotypes, really, in that Xavier comes across as a very egotistical surgeon, and I spent the entire length of reading this unable to decide whether or not I wanted to keep reading or DNF it. The writing, it's good. The story is not bad. There was no reason for me to DNF it except for the fact that I don't really love the setup for this, but there is a case that Honovi is involved in that I was invested in, and it's only part of 2 chapters of this book, but I'm like, I'm invested in this story, and not as invested in the romance. Not that the romance was bad or anything. Like, I actually think they're quite balanced characters. It just wasn't necessarily the romance for me. So I'm very confused about how I feel about this one at this point in time. We'll just keep on keeping on. Alright, so I read Jay's Boy Toy, which is an Omegaverse story. You have an older Omega who is a single dad and a younger Alpha who meet at the gym where the Alpha is a personal trainer, and they agree to a no strings arrangement where they sleep with each other because of reasons, like when you get that when in their first conversation when they meet. And it's really sweet. It's not very long and it was kind of fun. Not my favourite of the novellas I've read, but an interesting one. I don't know what I'm reading next. I will update you when I figure that out. Hi friends. I have to keep my voice down low because there's adults sleeping in the next room and the room behind me, plus an infant behind there. So I'm here to wrap up the last 3 books that I read for this vlog. So the first one was A Mage's Guide to Wooing Your Bestie, and that was by Sammi C. This one is a cute paranormal story. One of our heroes is a mage, knows all about the magical world. His bestie, who he is in love with, and who's also in love with him, but they're both friend-zoned each other, is a human who does not know about the paranormal world. And they both work together, and they end up in a small town where they unexpectedly do encounter quite a number of people from the paranormal community, and our human is able to be visited by his mother, who had passed previously, through the help of a clairvoyant in town. So it was a really sweet little story. Then there was Suck by Lindsey and Cora Rose, which I actually DNF'd, and I DNF'd at about 35% because I honestly just wasn't comfortable with it, and I probably should have DNF'd it sooner. So this is a monster paranormal kind of story. Our protagonist starts out, oh gosh, I don't know if he's 19 or 20 or something like that, but monsters have arrived on Earth, alien monsters, and they need human men. And basically think this is Morning Glory Milk and Palm, but a queer story. And yeah, just made me feel uncomfortable because the character is then, when the character turns 21, becomes part of this initiative for monsters, and I'm just like, not for me. We left that one behind.
And then I read Returning to Pine Ridge by Anna Ashley, who I've read before. And this one is a small town romance. One of our main characters, Atlas, has come home for his parents' 40th wedding anniversary, but he has a secret, and that secret is that he lost his job. He was blacklisted in his field, and he is jobless, broke, in debt, and homeless, and staying with his best friend. But he confesses all of this in a, what's it called, an oral history project recording, and he doesn't know anyone else is listening, but the guy who was there, Kai, he's the coordinator of the project, hears this confession, deletes it off the archive, but saves a copy to give back to Atlas as proof that he was brave enough to be able to talk about it, because he hasn't told his family yet. And the two strike up this connection, and then they end up working together when they discover that Atlas's former company, which is a big corporation, has designs on the small town, and he has evidence to show that they don't really have the town's best interests at heart, despite saying that they do. So that was also a very sweet story. It's been a while since I've had to hold this camera with my hand, so that's why it's moving up and down. Anyway, this was a really fun project. I read the 12 novellas. 1 DNF out of the 12 is pretty good. Hands down, my favorite is Moderating Love by Calder. That was just delightful. And then followed up by Jodi Oliver's book, because I'm very excited about the new series, and that we got a little snippet. That's exciting. Now I need to download this footage, edit it, and upload it for tomorrow. So I better get on that. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of these stories? Are you planning on picking any of them up? I will leave a link to the Fresh Start promo down below so you can check it out. It does run until the 30th of January, so you've got a bit of time to download the books if you're interested. I think they'll be available afterwards. I'm assuming they will be. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of graph emoji, because of Moderating Love, spreadsheets and graphs are one of our characters' love language. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.